Our last speaker is Amy Hestermann Crane. Amy is currently an analyst within Air Force Headquarters, and she's actually Australia's first space analyst. Amy maintains a passion for ethics and STEM, putting both interests to use as an editor for the Central Blue and as a member of the International Space Ethics Collaborative Research Team and the Space Generation Advisory Council. Today, she's going to be speaking on autonomous systems and artificial intelligence in space, the next frontier.
Thank you, everyone. I know that I go on to afternoon tea, so I'll try to speak quickly for you all. And when you work in ethics, it's good to just have a little disclaimer at the start to protect your bosses if you say something people don't like. So, it's not groundbreaking to say that autonomous systems and AI, or AIS, are the way of the future. These technologies hold numerous benefits for military, government, and civilian endeavours, particularly for space operations. Yet with the rapid development in this area, it cannot be overlooked that there are serious policy and ethical considerations which must be examined moving forward. The need for AIS is fast becoming a reality, where they provide numerous benefits beyond technological advantage, although they provide this as well. One of the greatest benefits that these systems provide is reduced operator fatigue from decision fatigue and environmental factors. The automation of data processing, from simple if this then that coding through to more complex diagnostics, can free operators from these mundane jobs. This allows the operator to focus on executive level tasking, such as analytics, assessment, and decision making. And let's be honest, who actually likes data entry? Boredom is a genuine fatigue factor that can be mitigated by such automation. AIS can also reduce environmental factors. An example is in ground stations, where system notification alarms are frequent and loud occurrences. AI for diagnostics and prioritization of alarms can reduce a operator's stamina through decision fatigue as well as noise fatigue. So fixing this is a win for both the operator's overall health as well as creating a work environment which can aid in the members' longevity and retention. Aside from freeing people's brain power, machines do this work faster and better than a human, enabling computers to undertake data processing and diagnostic issues can save the human operator hours and hours of work per week. It's also no secret that the speed of information processing and dissemination is integral to military operations. These systems don't need to sleep, can survive in extreme environments, and can keep working at optimal levels long past their human counterparts. This is particularly useful for space operations, which often have odd or long manning hours and can require multiple ground stations around the globe to maintain maximum space situational awareness. Space has a unique and difficult terrain to explore, requiring remote piloting and dealing with unknown weather factors or fast-moving space objects. Yet there are challenging terrains on Earth which could also benefit from improved communication and accessibility, particularly for search and rescue, humanitarian relief, and military operations. NASA's Mars Ingenuity Remote Piloted Autonomous System Helicopter, long name, so we're shortening it to Ginny, her nickname, highlights the next couple of points on the slide perfectly. Operating on Mars, the helicopter cannot be remotely piloted in the same manner that we can remotely pilot drones on Earth. Ginny faces large portions of time outside of NASA communication due to how planetary rotation and orbits work. This means that a pilot could lose their connectivity to a platform during a mission with potential catastrophic outfall. NASA thus gave Ginny a level of AI, uploading flight plans while communications was possible and enabling autonomous mission execution within programmed acceptable parameters, a unique benefit that allows Ginny to assess the environment in real time without long delays via the Mars-Earth communication relay. Missions can be aborted quickly, if necessary, due to any environmental factors, and this enhances the longevity of the program overall. Autonomous flight plan execution also ensures that missions can continue despite interplanetary communication barriers, as well as allowing operators to stand down during periods of ineffectiveness, thus reducing fatigue and manning requirements. And obviously, overcoming environmental barriers, communication hindrances, and increasing processing speeds, as well as decreasing operator fatigue, are integral enablers of achieving competitive advantage. As I've mentioned, the benefits of using AIS for diagnostics for terrestrial space operations are plentiful, but this also counts for on-orbit diagnostics. They're beneficial in mitigating communication issues between the asset and ground stations, as well as reducing any of the broadband data width requirements between the satellite and the ground station. Currently, AI is primarily used within satellites to process imagery through either onboard processing or terrestrial systems. Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, are information networks, frameworks to examine and map changes in the environment, including integration of satellite mapping, weather, and biomass information. Agriculture and environmental protection are two such areas which benefit from this. Many of these systems incorporate AIS to identify changes and process data and imagery for further analysis. Australian companies Fireball International and EXI are working on a purpose-built bushfire detection satellite that leverages AIS to detect and notify of bushfires within Australia, particularly for remote areas. And this is where most of our catastrophic fires start. The algorithm itself is able to detect fires within 1 minute of ignition 66% of the time, and 95% of the time within the first 5 minutes. This is a significant reduction in the average identification time of 90 minutes. Such technology benefits every single component of Australian society, from the civilians that are affected by fire, as well as the emergency services to deal with them. Now, law enforcement around the globe is also relying on AIS to detect and prosecute criminal behaviour. Using satellite imagery, analysts at Wright Lab have developed AIS to identify signs of slavery that can be difficult to detect terrestrially. Processes such as this also used to detect smuggling activities, illegal building construction, and illegal fishing activities. AI-accelerated imagery is not only processed significantly faster than human analysts could ever dream of, but it's also reducing the times from detection to conviction. Swarm technology, part of which we just saw, and I also hope that you go back and watch Squadron Leader Yaxley's work on this, because it's much more in-depth than this, is essentially just the group of autonomous systems which are able to conduct operations without further intervention from humans. This technology is emerging, but holds great potential for space missions. Swarms could be effective mechanisms to allow for on-orbit satellite diagnostics, as well as repairs, corrective manoeuvring, and potentially sacrificial lambs to the space debris slaughter. The realist in me also has to say that these swarm technologies would be amazing counter-space devices, but we'll just move on from that one. Swarms could also conduct space exploration or exploitation missions via exploiting similar benefits to Ginny. As well, with swarms, there can be a level of inbuilt redundancy, with the swarm autonomously adapting to minor constellation losses depending on the size of the unit. All of the previously mentioned areas do hold benefits for military operations, even if they're not currently being utilised. So the advantages in information processing are vital for military operations during times of conflict and humanitarian relief operations, both at home and abroad. The need for timely and accurate information is particularly important for small forces to mitigate wasteful resource allocation and increase their overall competitiveness. Australia is not the only small air force at this conference, with many of our regional partners also able to benefit from improving their information infrastructure and allocating members to higher level tasking. This information advantage leads to imagery analysis, which I've spoken about before, so I'll move on. but autonomous weapon systems is what's really interesting here. Autonomous weapons or lethal autonomous weapons could allow for greater extended operation protection, reduce risk to and requirement for personnel, and, depending on your point of view, they offer advantages in speed and lethal decision-making during conflicts. Space-based systems could realistically be incorporated into terrestrial autonomous systems through either queuing of the platform or positive identification, PID, of a target. Autonomous weaponry can also enable extended operations, both physically and temporally, providing greater flexibility to commanders in mission design. AIS data and imagery processing can offer similar benefits to completing more work with fewer personnel. AIS, as well as other technology, will be fundamental in allowing small and medium powers to remain relevant and competitive moving forward. Accountability needs to be qualified within these systems. Many nations demand a level of accountability from their militaries, which includes traceability of actions, certain levels of transparency in decision-making and design, and culpability if things go wrong. This includes building safeguards to protect citizen data and privacy from autonomous decision-making. But this accountability goes further with weaponry, where consideration must be given to how much human judgment is needed within the autonomous system. As mentioned, operators must be able to trust not only in the autonomous system itself, but the information that is provided during the PID process to justify any lethal action. We have seen a shift with modern combatants and non-combatants becoming increasingly indistinguishable during times of conflict. Here, an algorithm success rate of 85% isn't good enough, where weaponry and any system which feeds into PID must have, for now, a human on the loop to ensure due diligence is met with lethal action. Another concern of removing humans too far away from this process is the erosion of morals and accountability, as decision-making are increasingly detached from human responsibility. For these reasons, it is unlikely that contemporary AIS weapon design will allow for humans out-of-the-loop systems. But what of other AIS operations? Assessment is needed into the scale of the on-the-loop versus out-of-the-loop systems based on the technological need and accountability requirements. There is little legal policy surrounding AI and autonomous systems, and as many here would know, this is similarly reflected in the space domain. Interestingly, Australia is one of the first nations to state that the AI must be lawful, with the legal framework created, if not quite before the technology exists, then very early in its development. The ADF has also put consideration into the ethical uses of AI future development, and you can actually get that report at the AI stand out in the expo if you were interested in having a read. So efforts such as these that Air Force have done are important steps towards developing ethical AIS, which can be trusted by both domestic operators and international partners. However, there's still a lot of work to be done, with little in the way of actual legislation governing AIS in civilian, let alone military contexts. Before these policies are drafted, AIS and its use in space must question the very nature of whose ethical framework we are using. Space is a global commons, with assets integrated into every people's lives, from their education, their health, agriculture, and more. Impacts in the space domain have global ramifications. As evidenced throughout this seminar, there have been an increasing need for international collaboration. As such, we must be critical of what data that we provide these AIS systems, and that includes the ethical bias which we insert into the very foundation of these programs. Will a powerful nation's ethical framework dominate AIS creation? Or could programmers accidentally insert deontological reasoning where the ends justify the means? For that, I certainly hope not. Echoing cause from yesterday, our policies and framework are not wholly sound, and our adversaries are not wholly flawed. Objective and critical consideration to which ethical frameworks we use are imperative as we move forward. It's true that accountability for military systems within the public sphere can be difficult at the best of times, particularly for clandestine systems. Yet a robust framework needs to be constructed around transparency, traceability, and culpability if we are to establish trust for our military operators specifically and for our society more broadly. Leveraging off the workshops that have already been done in this space, it will be important to not only assess international law and expert advice, but also to assess the regional and national laws around our region to create a proper pathway moving forward. AIS technology is developing rapidly, so it is vital that our laws and our policy are considered early to ensure that this field evolves ethically. Thank you.